What's up, guys? My name is Lex Veldhuis and welcome to a new episode of Poker Coaching. We're going to dive into two tournaments that you guys love watching the most. It's going to be the $5,000 Titans and a hand from a deep run in the Sunny Million. Let's just jump straight in.
Okay, let's get straight into it. So we've got the ace-10. Early position opens, 40 bigs. We flat. This is reasonable. You thinking about 3-betting? How do you think about it?
I think I generally play this hand from the button like as a flat. A cutoff I might consider 3-betting sometimes, but I think like button versus EP, I just flat. I thought that this was a relatively high frequency bet for him. I do want to have some checkbacks that are resilient over multiple streets. I do feel I'm a bit capped. Well, I mean, I have ace jack, ace six, and pocket sixes, so I do have some strength, but that's about it. Like, right, I don't have the nuts, so I wanted to have some resilient hands to check, so I just decided to check this. I could mix it, but yeah.
Okay, so what you said is mostly right. The early positions player here, though, can definitely check this flop. Like, this is like it's not a... It's a board where he can bet, but it's like 50-50, something like that. It's not like, he has to bet like all the time or check all the time. It's like a 50-50 spot. So you will be up against both strategies, against people that know what's going on here.
Okay.
As for this hand, for yourself, it's also a mix. So betting's fine and checking's fine. Yeah, I don't think there's much more to be said about it. It can go either way. Thoughts now?
Okay, so now generally a mistake I used to make in the past that you pointed out is that if the flop gets checked through, or if you check back something of value that, and the other person checks twice, that it's a little bit of a mistake to bet small. I don't know. That's, I'm not trying to generalize here, but so I think I sized up. Now I just want to get value, so I can size up. Works well for both my bluffs. It's not even that big, to be honest, but works
Sure.
for both my bluffs and value. I would have liked probably to see myself bet like 10.
So if the flop checks through, the main point would be that that's more of a thing for out of position. So if out of position opens, you flat. So for Centaurus, check flop, and then Centaurus has a lot of strong hands for checking the flop to you. You have a lot less strong hands for checking back and seeing the turn. So Centaurus ends up using a lot of large bets. In this situation, this is still good, by the way. This is still good, but it's more like you just want to think about what you're doing. So in this situation, I think that you have a lot of you don't bet very often after you check back the flop. So in this situation, your first order of business is to check a lot. So you probably used, like a decently high frequency check on the flop, and you're going to pair that with a decently high frequency check on the turn. When you do bet, you're not going to have Jack X. So for example, King Jack here. That's a hand you just want to check.
Yeah.
So because of that, you don't actually have thin value bets. The reason I'm bringing this up as an example is because if the board was, let's say, 7-5-3, and you check back the flop, and then the turn was a 10 or something, or a 9. Even that's not the greatest example. Like maybe the board is like Jack 7-5, and the turn's a 9. You could maybe consider protection betting, that type of scenario with like your pairs of sevens that you check back the flop with or whatever. And so if you're using a lot of protection betting, smaller bets will be reasonable in this scenario. But here on an ace high flop, protection betting's not as good of an idea. So your bets are going to be larger. The point I'm trying to make is that you want to just think about, where are my value bets coming from? Like, where are my bets actually coming from in terms of combos? And if they're coming from top pair, yeah, they should be like half pot plus. But if they're coming mostly, if a lot of those bets are coming from like second pair and third pair, and you're protection betting, you think that's a good idea, then yeah, smaller bets will be reasonable. But you just have to think about the appropriateness of protection betting. And again, here, I don't think it's very good. I don't think you should be betting Jack X. Jack X doesn't need much protection. And by the time you get below the Jack, the hands are getting somewhat weak, right? So they're more like bluffs if you bet them. So they can just go into the larger sizings. So okay, so this is good. I like this. So this is reasonable.
Where do you think? What do you think are the best bluffing candidates on the turn?
Well, I think you could bet. I think you could bet, and you could bet quite large with a pair of sixes. I think that's reasonable. I mean, you still have queen 10. You still have like 10-9. You still have king 10. So like those are quite reasonable. You could have some flush draws. So those will be good.
Okay.
You could have hands like, you fly in the button, so you could have like 9-7 suited. So you have draws, right? So you can bet some draws. I don't think you should pure bet them. You can bet some pairs that are kind of crappy. You can bet deuces, which is a hand that people don't think about much. But you can bet like deuces, threes, right? I wouldn't bet sevens. I wouldn't even bet fives, I don't think. But I would bet deuces, threes, and maybe fours.
Okay.
So yeah, those would be king, queen, maybe. So like those are where the draws and like the really crappy pairs, basically. Those are where my bluffs would come from. Yeah. So you bet, you get called. This is again quite reasonable. And opponent checks, and so yeah. So once again, what are you thinking about?
Yeah, so I mean, I still think that I want to have value bets. I think that at this point it's very unlikely that my opponent has ace king, ace queen, or ace jack. Like I do think that I would bet pair of sixes sometimes on a turn. So I definitely have some value bets that protect me from check raising. I have pocket eights, of course. So I just want to go for value for his kings, queens, jack X part, and I don't think I can value time myself really versus ace king, ace queen, because I think that those have mainly been stripped from his range.
Okay, so where do you think the value is going? So the value is coming from kings and queens primarily, you think, and then you think that what kind of sizing are you thinking about?
I mean, if I'm betting against that range with a hand that's going to chop against a shitload of other aces, then well, okay. So a mistake that I make a lot is that I think about my current hand and think how it plays well into value bets, right? But let's think about where my other value is coming from and to see if that's a bigger bucket that I should just lob this in with. And if we talk about like I'm gonna have some 6x and 8s, now that's already bigger. But then I think that a relatively big size of the value betting range is also ace-x. So maybe I have two buckets. Like fuck. I think okay. So I do. Okay. So think about it. I do think that we have two buckets. I think that with one I'm targeting the kings, queens, jack X. And when I have 8s and 6x, then I make ace-x available for him, and then I can bet bigger. So in that sense, then this one should probably be like 50-60% pot or something.
Yeah, I would say that that's probably the exactly correct answer. I don't think there's much that this hand can do outside of that. I think your opponent, like, the main thing I would say is that you check back the flop too. So you don't have, so like that means that you're going to be playing like the board a lot. You're going to have a lot of like ace 10. You're not going to have as much ace queen. I'm not saying you can't have ace queen, but you're not going to have much of it, right? So you're not going to beat the board in terms of the kicker. And that means you're both going to share. Like this was really good. Like this ace 10 was really good here, right?
Yeah.
This was really good here. Because this player is probably more dense ace deuce, ace 3, ace 4, ace 5. And this is like a very clean, like for check twice, and this is a very clean value bet. So this kicker is like important. This is an important kicker, and it's going to mean that you win a lot against this player. And then this river really blows for this hand. Like this is like disastrous. So this player still has quite a significant amount, I would say, of ace 3, ace 4, ace 5, ace ace 6, but ace 7, like not as much ace 6 because I bet the turn sometimes. Ace 7, ace 9. And so if you bet too big, you narrow their range towards those combos, which means you don't make any money because you split with those. So you have to bet small enough that they have to defend the non-ace X component, like at a significant clip. Because where all the value comes from. So, yeah, I mean, like, that means betting half pot. So, oh, okay. So this is a bit too large.
Yeah.
You got yourself there, though. You figured it out yourself. I didn't do anything. So
Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah. So like talking over the hand, I figured that I needed a different answer here in that sense.
yeah. So and then you got called, and you still got looked up by the pair of jacks. But it's important that we recognize that this is where the EV is coming from, right?
Yeah.
So this player still called anyways. They didn't need to, but they did, and like this, they probably recognize that they have a capped range when they take this line, and they probably mix this off. And this hand is a mix against, this hand is probably still mixed off against this size. It's not like this hand becomes pure fold, but it's a pretty high frequency fold, I would say, as the bet gets to be this large. And it's going to be a much higher frequency call as the bet size comes down.
Okay, yeah, very interesting. That's good to know. It now it's reorganized in my head, that's good. Also, like, where does the value come from? It's good to go through the exercise as well. And I was struggling a bit. Now, the next hand is going to be from the Sunday Million, blind versus blind, ranges are wide, hands get really crazy, and of course there's an insane first place prize with a lot of pressure. So let's dive in and see what the hand was all about. Okay. Let's write down on the notes. Yeah, that's not good. Let's look at this stuff like King Jack or some shit. It's a bit hard. Ooh, that's good.
All right, we've got Queen 10 here, and we can just get straight into it. So we it folds to us in the small blind, and we complete, which I think is very reasonable. Are you thinking about raising it all, or?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, yeah, I could, but I think I'll go a little bit more towards like Queen 9, Queen 8. For that, I think that Queen 10 can do both really, without really being able to go wrong.
Okay, and then is this like ICM adjusted? Because this looks like it's quite deep.
Yeah, it is pretty far in the tournament, but it's in like a massive field. So this is Sunday Million with still 300 people left or something. So pay
Okay,
jumps
so we're
are,
inside the money. Yeah, we're
yeah,
inside the money, but we're not. Yeah, okay, cool. All right, so we completed. We get ISO'd, and this hand doesn't re-raise or fold, so this is what we do. And now we get to the flop, and I think the check range is the answer, so that's fine. And what are you thinking about now?
I'm trying to think like generally when somebody limp calls a small blind, they're all over the Queen Jack X, 10-9X, right? Or Queen 10X or whatever. Those are very strong boards for the small blind. I'm trying to decide here if at that stage in the tournament, if somebody, like, because usually you want to check the big blind with suited hands, but obviously you start introducing some like 9 deuce of clubs, 6 deuce of clubs and stuff, ISOs from the big blind. So I do think that they have a decent amount of flushes. But I still think that I have the advantage here. Like I'm limp calling a lot of suited aces, a lot of suited kings. So I generally think that I have the advantage on this board.
Yeah, yes, I'm actually going to interject. You're actually right. I agree with you. So that means that you can actually probably lead, though.
Yeah.
I skipped over and I got it wrong. But so like you didn't, not the only one that got it wrong. But as soon as you started talking about it, I was like, yeah, he's right about the range construction here. And leading for that reason is probably a good idea. And this is like when we lead, we usually use it like we usually do it in like a value protection way. So this is probably a good idea. So like you see, yeah, like a lot of the leading strategies tend to be constructed that way. This is probably a good idea to lead, but it's not like it's stupid to check. But yeah, good. You brought up really good points. As soon as you started describing everything, I was like, oh yeah, he doesn't really ISO suited hands at all. So like leading is probably a good idea because we have all the flushes. We limp call all the suited hands. He checks them back.
Yeah.
He has some, like he has really good ones. Like he has like ace king suited, of course. But yeah, like we have a decent lead opportunity probably. Yeah, so we check. He bets, and you call. I think that this is I think once we get here, this is the play.
Yeah.
So what are you thinking about now?
I mean, I just think I win enough. I don't think I really have anything else in check. I have different hands that could lead perhaps or something. I don't even know if I want to lead here, to be honest. Especially now, because now he's gonna ISO a lot with his offsuit shit, right? So he's gonna have lots of like king 6 offs and hands like that. So I don't think that now on the turn is not that great of a board for me. But I still have a shitload of showdown value, so I'm just gonna check.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. He checks back, which is kind of what we want to see.
Yeah.
Now,
Okay, so
what?
now I'm just wondering, like, because it's obviously insanely wide ranges, so I can also introduce more value bets, right? So I think I block bet this. Yeah, so I bet 25%, and I'm just wondering, like, because I blocked 10-9, which is quite nice. Obviously, I have a lot of value. The one problem is I don't have that many misses, so I don't have many natural misses on the 8 as well, right? Because my 10-8, 10-9, and 8-9, if I have those, they get there in ways of showdown value with the 8. So that takes some of my misses away, and then it's pretty much down to a queen jack or having a club that I call the flop with, right? So I'm struggling a little bit to see if this is a good spot to block bet or if I should just really only do it with like a low club.
Okay, so the main ideas are like for me, like how do I want to bluff? which you kind of alluded to, which is like, some of my combos got taken out. It's gonna be harder. You still have like King 10, for example. That's a good one to bluff with. That's like the one that like immediately emerges in your head, I think, when you think about bluffing in this situation. So King 10 is gonna be pretty high frequency. You probably have King 9 suited or King 9 offsuit to a lesser extent. I'd bluff with that as well, obviously. But yeah, but you're gonna have to be kind of creative probably about where the bluffs come from. Because of the 8 of diamonds turn. So the 8 of diamonds turn makes things harder. Now, as far as mistakes go, and I do think there was a mistake made. This is a really good hand here still, which maybe doesn't look like a really good hand, but it's a pretty damn good hand. Yeah. So I wouldn't block it. And this is actually one of the mistakes that a lot of people make, like just in general when they're playing. They bet too small. Like they recognize that the hand's not the nuts or whatever, and then they bet too small. So you can bet like you can't. I'm not. This hand's not. This hand's like a half pot plus. You definitely can't check raise this. Like I say, you definitely can't. Maybe it's not stupid. I would not check raise this hand. I think it's too strong. Maybe I'm missing something, but I wouldn't. I might check raise like 8-4 suited or something, but I wouldn't check raise this. So yeah. So because I'm not check raising, I'm going to bet it, and then if I'm going to bet it, I need to think about which sizing. I'm not trying to like call 2 bets with this hand. You just have flushes that can do that if you want to do that. Mm-hmm. So this is just like going to basically like if you think about your ideal world, you bet, he calls, you win. And how much money can I make when that happens? And if you bet like half pot or something like that, then you're going to be up against a lot of Jack X, in my opinion. You're going to be up against a lot of 8X, in my opinion, and some flushes for sure. Like you're going to lose sometimes, but I think that that's the way to go. I think this is too small. I think this is the appropriate bet size when you have a Jack.
I see.
Maybe that's clearer. Like maybe that makes things clearer. Is that like I think a Jack is pure bet. Like I don't think you want to like that's how like that gives you some context for like how valuable this hand is to me, right? Like I look at this and I'm like, okay, this hand's pretty good. It's like, how good is it? Well, it's like, I would pure bet a Jack. So if I'm gonna pure bet a Jack, this hand's pretty. That gives you some context. Yeah. So I think that a Jack is just like a block. If you have like Jack 7 suited, you block a lot here to this type of size. I think if you have a pair of 8s,
it's because I had a feeling my hand was good, right? Like I had a feeling like, okay, this is a value bet, but what I'm doing is I'm just using a completely different bucket to put this in. I'm in the sort of like block bet. It's actually a weird one. Like you're gonna have to put some induces in there, I guess, right? Like block with like the 10 of clubs and call it off or something. Or
yeah, you can just block with the ace of clubs.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, you can just block with like ace of clubs 8, king of clubs 8, right? So if you think about where the value is going to come from, I think that pair of 8s is like pretty relevant. So so I think that when you bet, when your opponent calls, they're gonna have a pair of 8s a lot. So if you block the pair of 8s, that's kind of a problem. So if you have an 8 with a flush, that's a good way to block because a lot of your EV will not come from the 8 because you block it. So it's gonna come from trying to catch him bluff raising you.
Yeah.
So like ace of clubs 8 seems like a good way to do it. King of clubs 8 seems like a good way to do it. Okay. This is just like a little bit too small, I think.
Yeah.
And fortunately we lost the minimum, so that's good.
Yeah. Okay, that's amazing. Yeah, thank you. That's good insight. It's just like it fortifies the confidence that I had that I just need to bet this hand because I think a lot of times where people forget is when they look at top players and they think that those guys just win a lot of flips or something, but it's actually that they maximize value in these situations when they have Queen X, right? That they like you recognize like, oh, this is half pot plus, and you get called all these times, and it's like, okay, yeah, printing. Where other people are like, oh shit, 4 clubs, I check. And it goes check, and they beat like 8-10 of spades, and they're like, oh good, he didn't have a club.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's exactly how the game works. Yeah. It's like recognizing situations where there's a lot of dollars on the table still, and other people miss them, and it's actually very significant on the river, especially from out of position. So,
all right. Yeah, awesome.
Cool.
Thank you. Man, that was so eye-opening that we still have big bets on that river as well. It's really cool that I chose some of the right answers in that hand, but I just put them in the wrong bucket. And we talk about buckets a lot of the time because we have buckets for checking, check raising, betting small, betting big, and each has their own purpose. So I think that's something you're going to get really used to when you hear us talking about that. And it was really cool to hear that we can just bet bigger with the Queen 10. We shouldn't always be afraid of the board, especially when ranges are massive and there's lots of hands they have to defend with. I really hope that you guys liked this episode again. Please like, subscribe, so I know that you guys like this segment. And if you have any questions about any of the complicated stuff, drop them down below. See you guys next time. Bye.